Don't worry, friends, we've all been there. Savage enemies charging headlong as your raggedy group of soldiers and companions dig in beside you. The steel and gleaming armor of the enemy striking in contrast to your stinking animal hides and leather jerkins. Companions are one of the most powerful agents you can employ in Calradia, but there is a bewildering amount of choices you can make. Spear and shield? Or maybe we give them some throwing axes? Where do we use them in the army? How on earth do we keep these guys alive? In this new series, we'll cover all of these questions and we'll help you power level your future companions. It's a pretty ripe opportunity to get attacked. I mean, I don't really care about this city, although we'll see. There may be other side branches that come off of this Batanian campaign. This is, just their project here for 1.3, and indeed they are engaging. This is perfect. So whether or not we have other series off this kind of depends on your guys' appetite. However, we're going to continue to do some tactics and some power leveling with our companions. So welcome back again, friends, to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related. We sieged a city here, Omor, and we have an extraordinarily strong infantry heavy army. The army's not all tier 5, but we have a lot of high-end tier 5 units. I handpicked these guys from a couple different locations. We've got some guys that have to upgrade still that will probably upgrade quickly. Some of these tier 4 and 3 units. And we have some of the bedraggled units that get made fun of on Reddit because you have to get those guys to get Falksmen. That's our goal. We're going to use a mix of shock troops in today's episode. We have other infantry as well. However, we're going to be highly focused on the shock troops in this episode. How do you use shock troops? How do you separate them from other divisions? And then how do you level up companions with those shock troops, right? We even have a couple Skolderbroda because they have axes. And you can see our army is about 60%, maybe 70% infantry. Now, right before I made the intro, Sturgeon forces were moving in here, so we're going to get attacked. And we have a legendary sledgehammer and a 30% speed banner with all these companions. Now, you notice they have no ammunition, even though they're better at shooting a bow. This guy has throwing skill, no throwing weapons. This guy's an archer and absolutely no bow and arrows. That's because we want to focus on their combat skills. That tells you that we're not expecting to lose battles in this episode, although we'll see. If we lose, we'll just rebuild quickly. Now, in these episodes, we're going to focus on a couple different tactics that I want to continue to share, sort of similar to the tactics that we shared in episode 2. I'm not sure if I'm going to produce an overhead for this episode, but we will use the RTS mod extensively to show you what we're going to do here. The devilish things we're going to do to these poor sturgeons. Incredibly, they decided to attack here and they're going to get melted something fierce. Now, flanking, traditionally, right, that's one of the strongest tactics basically in the history of warfare. Whether it's Hannibal at Cannae, that was a double flank, a reverse crescent. Flanking with infantry is ultra powerful, and this is going to be a great sort of tutorial battlefield here. The sun and the snow, it's going to make for good visuals. The slope is sort of perfect for what we're hoping for. Ultimately, you would prefer to have your shock troops and cavalry run downhill. When they're engaging, we're going to be running uphill a little bit, but that's okay. We've got the speed banner bonus, and I think these units are going to fly around the battlefield. Now, like Napoleon or any other general, I'd like to, want to inspect your troops. Make sure somehow there's not a bunch of archers in there you didn't realize until the battle started. Always good, especially with your critical units, to get down to the field and identify any problems. Now, we're going to form a formation here that's right side heavy, and that's because we want to draw the enemy's attention towards the right. That way our shock troops can barrel in unimpeded, unnoticed. They'll get attacked, of course, because it's 100 shock troops, but we're hoping that the enemy by that point is swarmed. It is an easy tactic. Once you lay this out pre-battle, and actually we can do a skein here with this cav division. Watch this shit. It's going to be basically an arrow pointing to the enemy. The 6th Division and 1st Division are infantry lines. They're lined up like that to collapse on the enemy. Of course, archers in the center. On this far left side is cavalry and shock troops, right? So the enemy comes into this center hole here, and they just get devoured. Now, we'll show you that view again. We'll do something maybe right as the enemy's coming in. Get these guys off their horses. No shock troops on horses, please. The cav line in front is classic shield and shock, right? I say at this stage classic because I've been teaching this to Bannerlord players for about 2 years now. Devastatingly impactful, and just to cover it in 10 seconds, shock troops don't have shields by nature, right? They have a two-handed weapon. Well, how do you protect them? Put a bunch of cavalry in front of them that do have a shield. Not only the cavalry have shields, but they kind of intermingle with the shock troops, right? The shock troops can be sort of in between the cavalry, protecting them even further, standing up enemy cavalry, and then of course their horse is armored. So even if they're being shot at, it's much more likely the horse is going to get hit than your shock troops. It's remarkably effective. All right, let's look at this shit here. There's the enemy, boys. The arrow points towards the enemy, right? In fact, we can straighten this out a little bit. The biggest key is to make sure that the 1st and 6th Division aren't too close to the center, of course, because then the enemy will zerg those guys, right? What's this guy? There's like a guy running around down there. Oh, you know what? That's my character. The AI is running around with this dude. We are using the RTS mod, so we'll speed through some of these episodes today, or at least some of these battles today. Hopefully we can get 3-4 examples. This is going to be a very simple, very obvious example, and this is one of those situations where you can F3. That formation we designed beforehand, design that formation, pause it if you need to, do what you got to do, and then once the enemy's deep into the bucket here, this is very similar to a kill box here as we get some glorious ragdoll javelin throws. You just let the enemy come down the center. They're starting to shield wall because they're starting to get shot, and then you can just F1, F3. If you have powerful archers, you can also F1, F3 hold fire, and everybody will just roar in and collapse on the enemy. They're getting attacked on 3 sides, and that'll be that. Now, the other thing I like to do is I like to manually shove my cavalry forward. Right? You put them in that initial line, and then all you have to do is just kind of point them where you want them to go, right? You just kind of shove them into the center of the formation. Ultimately, we'll send them almost to the other side of the formation. Now, you see all these different divisions just basically surrounding this popcorn blob-looking terrible formation, sturgeons. This sturgeon formation must be called the undisciplined mob formation, because it's distressing. Now, these archers here, this was just a fat finger. I must have tried to shield wall the skirmisher 6th Division instead. I did that archer division. Back to live action here. Our cavalry scored some kills there, right? They actually speared a few guys. I don't care if they kill guys. They knock guys over. In come the real murderers, right? It's 100 shock troops shoulder to shoulder, right? Now, it's a little bit tight form. You would prefer that there was a bit more open space, but the sturgeons were kind of open and scattered here. It's a really optimal situation for your sturgeons. Right here, F1, F3, right? Every single unit charge. The archers will move forward. They're shooting. Now, this is probably the hardest matchup for shock troops. And what I mean by that is the one foe of shock troops, besides archers, of course, archers in the open, don't ever let that happen, right? Your shock troops will insta-die. But the one huge foe that's a problem for shock troops is sword and board, right? Mace and board, because they swing fast and they can block. Your units take a while to wind up as we clobber this sturgeon force. They're just getting blown off the field. But their shield guys swing their weapon quickly, and your shock troops will really have a hard time making contact. In fact, it's sort of, it's showing it right here, right? Every second guy I hit blocks 3 times. It's a problem, right? Fighting infantry like this with shock troops, you want to have support. If you're relying on shock troops mostly or only, you're going to lose, because they're going to block the shit out of your two-handed weapons. Now, you want them in the open. You want them like this, where they're all sort of scattered and they're not organized in a shield wall, because once they start blocking, man, are you in trouble. Now, look at these fuckers blocking every other shot. Now, they're regrouping, but this battle's over, right? You can tell from the power bar, they're not even really regrouping. These guys are trying to get back to their toothless life in their 16-hour medieval days and their pathetic hovel. This battle is over. These troops are effectively routed. So we're going to try sort of progressively harder battles. And because of the nature of just random gameplay that I filmed these on, there's a probability that it's out of chronological order. Hopefully you fellas can forgive me for that, right? We're basically going to try to show you this on increasing difficulty, probably culminating in a bigger battle where we get some really good flanking action on. And good stuff here, right? Not a single companion got dropped there. All those shock troops, surrounded by fellow axe murderers, racked up kills. Now, they didn't get that many kills, frankly, because the enemy didn't have archers, which is a good, very good situation. Of course, we've showed you a little bit of that before. But it's very difficult just to pound a whole bunch of infantry with shock troops, right? So we'll have other battles where they rack up a lot more kills, and we just got a whole bunch of upgrades to that guy, right? 30 upgrades to some of our elite troops. Now this, I'm actually going to do a mix, and we will try to pay attention to how the Falksman and the veteran Falksman do. A lot of people think the Falksman is better than the veteran Falksman because they have that super fast Falks. I'm not sure I agree with that, but we can do a little bit of testing for this for today's episode. I keep saying for this series, it's going to be one episode. I'm just going to trim and patch and put all these different battles together. Hopefully it's coherent. Hopefully I'm not just rambling like a stupid asshole, and hopefully you guys get a lot out of it. All right, let's look for our next challenge here. I feel like Catwoman in The Dark Knight. Little closer, honey. Don't know if you guys have seen that great scene, but we wanted this Western Empire to fight, and I wanted to fight over here, especially because there's water and good line of sight. I know the maps of Bannerlord pretty well, and some areas in the center there, north of Rotai, have bad visibility, but this is perfect, right? This is going to be optimal here for another example of some flanking, some destructive shit here with our force. Now, you're always, anticipating. You got this landscape. The river is an optimal spot to catch them in because, of course, if they can't get away, our shock troops are just going to murder everything in sight. So how do you do that, right? How do you get the enemy in the river? Or how do you get them on the other side of that slope where we can pour over the ridge there and anticipate putting a flanking force that just thunders down out of the hills into their ranks? You got to have a little bit of vision as a commander to do some of these advanced tactics, and we'll see how we do, right? Not always, it doesn't always go off as I plan them. Sometimes you got to shift on the fly. So again, same thing here. 2nd and 3rd Division. These guys are going to be paired much of this episode because they work so well together. Now, if they're smaller divisions, in other words, here I'm looking at the numbers, 130, it's about a third of our army. If you have less troops than that in those 2 divisions, use something else as well. Give them, I would prefer archers, right? A nice band of crossbow actually works really well because then you have a complete whole separate army. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, for example. Then that crossbow, once they're out of shooting range, once they're done shooting out of bolts, also known as out of ammo, then they will be able to charge with their shields up, and then you have double shielded shock with your shock troops, right? So our narration has gone to shit here because I'm anticipating luring the enemy into the river here. So it's a little bit messy with trees, but I'm going to walk you guys through my thought process here. We're going to put archers, we're about 120, maybe 130 meters from the water. What I want is the enemy to get either to the edge of the water or into the water on our side, right? In other words, be vulnerable so that they can't retreat easily. If there's a river behind them, they'll be just like Bennigsen at the Battle of Friedland, 1807, where Napoleon trapped him against the river and just butchered all the Russians. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. And the AI is not as smart as Bennigsen, although as soon as I said that, they started going for our 2nd and 3rd division. So what are we going to do here, right? We're going to haul ass, right? We're not about to have our 2nd and 3rd division, which is like a quarter or a third of our army, attacked by all their forces, right? So we're going to haul these guys out of here. Fortunately, with that speed banner, aforementioned speed banner, we're just going to be able to peel out of here and make them attack our main divisions. In other words, these forces here, God, they're accurate. Some guy, like way off in the forest, hit me with a perfect headshot. Like the first arrow fired hit me right in the forehead. I mean, you would not want to fuck around in real life with these archers in Bannerlord now. And it becomes even more difficult to do non-archer tactics because archers are fucking deadly, right? If you're trying to play infantry only in Bannerlord, well, better make sure you have a lot of shields. That's the answer. All right, so we're forcing them basically to attack our other divisions, and they are moving laterally here, so it does look like they're heading towards the other divisions. Now, I just set them up in a relatively standard formation. In fact, they're already scoring kills. That's probably some of our Fiend champs. We do have some archers, but they're probably shooting, and we have a beautiful angle. In fact, They're crossing into the river. This looks like an ass jam opportunity. There's not really, a clear battlefield tactic for this. Like historically, we're basically just going to come in behind the enemy. The reason this would never really happen in real life, or rarely, is you would watch your rear. You would have a reserve division, fucking trees. You would have a reserve division or something behind you. You wouldn't just let an army come behind you. But that's exactly what we're going to be able to do here. Now, I want to press them into the river a little bit. So what we're going to do with our main forces here, these 5 divisions, is start to advance them. We want their archers to fall back, right? Ordinarily, you don't want their archers to fall back because, of course, then they're kiting you and they're shooting you for longer. Here, I'm hoping we can push them into our ass jam, right? Basically, this tactic could be called the ass jam. And a lot of their archers are already in the river. So we do have the Russians here in the river. Napoleon's famous quote from that battle was, you won't catch the enemy making a mistake like this twice. Well, the AI, fortunately, will make these mistakes over and over again. God, look at these archers. I'm filled full of arrows, and I haven't even gotten that close to their archers, but we've got this set up beautifully, right? So look at our location here, right along the river. Now, the only thing that sucks is there's a clear line of sight for their archers the whole approach. So how do you handle that, right? We're going to lead with that shield division. That's why they're here. Those cavalrymen certainly aren't going to kill archers. If we charge those guys into the back of those Western Empire forces here, they would insta-die. Most would die on the way, and then the rest would die as soon as they hit they speared a couple guys, got 1 kill, and then just insta-died. There's a huge amount of archers there. 300? 400? It's a massive amount. All right, so we're pressing the center because, again, I want their archers skirmishing, sort of squirming around, right? If we can make them move, so much the better, right? In fact, let's take a cav division here and menace this. Perfect. It made them start to move. That's going to buy us some time here. Get up here, boys. Got to do this quick. So the 2nd and 3rd division now, we just move in for the kill, and we're right behind the enemy. Now, it's very messy, right? I'm getting shot at. There's cavalry attacking us now. I got to get to the other side here, dismount a few of these guys. And now we're going to join our boys. And boys, the enemy trapped, right? They are fucking surrounded. Even their retreat is cut off. We've got that 8th Corps. Yeah, I saw you throwing your javelin, you fucker. Watch this shit. Look at these boys. Look how fast they're moving. that infantry or that archer was trying to regroup. He's like, pull back. Oh shit, there's murderers behind us. And speaking of murderers, I almost got killed right there. They must have had an infantryman back there. I didn't even see him. But look at this shit. I saw a horror movie once that was like this, where a bunch of helpless archers got murdered by sturgeon heroic line breakers and Falksmen. This is basically a war crime. In fact, the Geneva Convention, 1950s, I think, or something like that, this was made illegal. This kind of attack in warfare, because it's so savage. I mean, this enemy force could not have been more fucked. Now, they do have some other forces here besides archers, but their archers, which was the bulk of their army, just disappeared, right? We just killed, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 archers in a minute. Now it's bloody, right? We're suffering a lot of losses. In fact, I can't tell where the death is happening. Looks like they had a long, spreading group of archers that's still shooting us, and I see guys coming across the river too. But get in there, boys, charge. Sometimes you're better off just pointing your units where you want them to go, right? I will physically point them because then they go there immediately. These are all recruits and low-level troops. They can join the slaughter here. More Geneva war crimes being violated. A bunch of blacksmiths getting trucked on the ground. I just got to stay alive here. I have 0 health. I look down and there's nothing. There's no bar at all. I didn't mention it, but I told everybody hold fire, by the way. When your archers are kind of lagging and the rest of your troops are under duress, have everybody charge. Fucking looter running up. Have everybody charge and hold fire. And that immediately will have all of them bellowing into action. Look at this guy. He's trying to get the kill. Beat him, boys. That guy was trying to kill your commander. All right, let's take cover here. There's another homeless guy over here. And the mob smashes everything to pieces. That was beautiful. Now, that doesn't always go like that, right? You're not going to have that kind of timing probably your first time you attempt that. But there you go, right? There's basically a reverse flank, right? It's not easy to pull those off. But if the enemy is sucked in the right scenario, a reverse ass jam like that, boy, was that devastating, right? And probably tons of kills, because remember what our troops were attacking that battle. Unlike that battle 20 minutes ago against the Sturgeons, this was almost all archers. And look at the kills, right? 16, 10. Our companions racked up some kills, got some skill points. Good stuff, right? And where's the Falksman and veteran Falksman here? Let's see. I told you we were going to try to compare these guys here. We won't spend a lot of time. In fact, I can't find them here. They must be up at the top. Here we go. So the veteran Falksman got a 6-to-1, 5-to-1 kill ratio, 36 to 7, and the Falksman had a 29-to-1. So it's just one battle, but so far Falksman, right? And part of the reason is their weapon is so fast, right? Their Falks is, well, you guys have all swung a Falks pretty much, right? If you've never swung a Falks, go out and get yourself one. They're incredibly fast. I think it's 100 speed for two-handed. And it's just, you know, it's borderline OP. And this is a tier 4 unit that has them. Now, we've mentioned it before. They don't have hardly any armor. They're dressed like a berserker. They have their sleeves their arms are plainly visible, right? So you got to protect these guys. They have no shield because they have a two-handed weapon. So, shield and shock. Another good demonstration here. We get a few prisoners. I'm only going to recruit the higher end prisoners because I don't want an army full of serfs here. We want a good, strong army that fits the theme of today's episode. All right, let's see what else we can kill out here. Of course, if the garrison engages, it's gonna fuck with our plan here. We want them all to ourselves. We don't want a bunch of militia and ghetto garrison troops participating here. This is the kind of battle where we should be able to handle things on our own. And this is kind of the right size, right? When you get really big battles, it's going to be difficult for you guys to see what's going on. I'm sure it's already difficult to see what's going on because there's so much movement. That's why we tried to make sure we had at least that Sturgeon battle at the beginning for guys who are brand new to tactics, and it's a little bit overwhelming, some of the things that we're trying in this episode. I do understand that it's pretty ambitious, but we want to, you know, effectively try to help players of all different talent levels. And presumably there are even some players that don't benefit at all from the episodes that we're sharing, but a lot of players, of course, this will be new to them. So let's take on a Vlandian force here, about twice our size, not quite twice our size, and we're in pretty good shape. Now this is an obviously great candidate for a battlefield, you know, perfect for this episode. For this type of attack, because we can see very clearly what's going on. Even better, there's all kinds of hills and ridges where you can plow over the edge of the enemy. The bottom line is that if you're a tactician, the landscape that is complex, in other words, hills like this, always favors you because the AI doesn't know how to use them as well as you will. Right? You guys will turn into landscape identifying demons where you can simply look at a landscape and say, oh, it's a perfect opportunity to flank their left side over the rear while we get them to engage on their right. So let me show you how we're going to do this. Second. This might actually be an example where we leave an archer division with the second and third here. You see them up at the top of the ridge there. I think they're actually in a circle, which is, of all the different formations, it's probably the best they could be in at that point in place, because you can't really hit their archers very easily with ammunition. Maybe a little bit over here I can just barely see, and I like to try it out, right? Usually bow is a better way to do it, but if you can hit a guy right over the top of those shields, then your archers will be able to as well. Now, right here, I'm going to set up some archers here, so we'll protect against their cavalry here. This is just automatic. You guys will start getting used to doing this. There's a bunch of cavalry here menacing both our flanks. We're just going to put a line of cavalry there with an infantry division to assist them repel any cavalry attacks, right? It's just an automatic thing. The AI loves to make earnest little cavalry attacks, and we're going to shatter them if they do so. Frankly, it would benefit us if they charged here, because now we're prepared for it. Now, yeah, they're right at the top of the hill in a ring, so let's send forces to the other side of the map here. We're going to send the second and third, and I'm contemplating sending the seventh. Let's see what this looks like here. Let's see if there's enough room in this valley for all our archers to set up. It's really narrow. There's a little funnel here. Let's also protect our units here with an infantry line in a shield wall. We've both infantry divisions over here, and what I mean by that is both shield infantry divisions. In fact, let's charge with that. They just charged right in on the 6th. Charge, boys. Counter charge. Well, we can blast these guys right out of here. His shield goes flying. So does his. You gotta love the physics. His shield goes flipping down the battlefield. All right, so that side is sealed off. The enemy's fucked now because we're going to be able to get... It's almost going to be a repeat of that battle 5-10 minutes ago where we get behind the enemy. And just push our way through here. Anytime you want to take a position where there's an enemy cavalry wing, just send cavalry and shock troops directly behind them, right? You basically can take over their position. These little fuckers here all trying to get the kill. Now, I don't have a great spot for the archers, but this high ridge, right, it's like a spine on the mountain. We'll be able to use that. All right, perfect. Now we got to reset this infantry. They're getting a little overzealous. I like that it's close enough I can micromanage both, right? We can just use defensive squares for the time being and let our archers work. Eventually what we're going to do is we're going to charge with that infantry, right? Now first, we're going to soften them up. If they charge, we will roar in quickly behind them here with the second and third. Again, that speed is the key here. Our troops move incredibly fast. We can actually just start menacing them with cavalry here. Because we have the speed edge in this battle, in fact, all of our troops basically move faster than their equivalent. Let's get these archers higher up here. That way they can, if the enemy retreats down the hill here, they'll be strafed the whole time by our archer division. Now you got to be careful with these third guys. They're actually so fast. Look at them rocketing all the way towards the circle. I don't want them. Get back here, boys. I don't want them doing that shit because they'll get killed. Right? These guys will basically charge all the way. Look at that. They're just pouring into the enemy ranks. I'll back them up. It's incredible how fast they move with the speed banner. Now here I'm just doing temporary circle defense with the cavalry for that shock troop. It's one of the best way basically to protect them from chaos, and in this case cavalry charging. The cavalry have to hit that shield circle there, and it's going to slow them down. Once they're in there, they're going to get pummeled. All these guys are stood up. How do you think that's going to go? That guy got hit by 12 different Manavliatons. All right, so we've got the enemy in a bad spot here. We're now behind them with most of our heavy hitters. In fact, it looks like they just charged. Perfect. Another chance for us to ass jam the enemy here. Bring the second right in. In fact, they're leaking out here to our left. Charge with the first and sixth. Basically, we're gonna make an aggressive approach at the center to pin the enemy in place. And now comes our savage, overwhelming attack here, right? Shock troops, cavalry. In fact, another nice thing you can do here, instead of just pointing, is drag them towards you. Just tell them, when you're on the opposite side here, say, come here. Second and third, come my way, right? I want all these cavalrymen in here going crazy on their archers. And then our shock troops will be, 10 seconds behind me. I'm going to do a little damage here before the boys arrive. Just clobbering people everywhere. And here they are, right? They're moving fast. They look like a train, like an avalanche. And they're just throttling everything. And the enemy's totally trapped here. I mean, they are pinched as bad as it gets, right? They're basically flanked on two sides. There's a lot of foes, so it's bloody. But the enemy could not be in a worse position here. Up the slope come our infantry. Now our archers are shooting unimpeded, right? They have no threat at all. And it's a little bit touch and go here. The enemy does have a lot of solid troops here, but man, did we blast those archers, right? You see archers running for their lives. In fact, show me your hall pass. Nobody said you bitches could leave. All right. There's chaos down here. I think that's just the last of them being executed. And there you go. Sweet. So that's going to play beautifully off of the ass jam we had maybe 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. Back-to-back devastating ass jams here to give you guys a little bit of tactical tool bag enlargement, right? You guys are probably already doing some of this stuff. And look at that channel, 84 kills for the Falksmen. Now, they suffered huge losses, 29 losses, right? So they were in there wailing away. It's actually really interesting. The veteran Falksmen, most of them survived. Or no, excuse me, they got 11 kills for 4. Okay, so they actually had about the same kill ratio. It just, the Falksman looks a lot more impressive because we have a lot more of them. And the companions do work, right? More work for the companions here. It's beautiful. All right, I need some caffeine. My brain is stimulated right now. Let's give it some overdrive here. We got pompous Fiend champs yelling right in my ear. Yeah! And this is nice. We don't have to run to a castle, so we'll just be able to very quickly restore some troops here and look for the next challenge. Right, we're hopefully going to be able to find an army of 1,000 plus, right? We really want a couple difficult challenges for this episode, and just to flesh out your guys' tool bag, right? We want your tool bag to be dragging on the ground behind you. I use that analogy a lot. I want you guys to have so many different tactical options that you're just like, how do I want to kill the enemy today? And you just have that fun and ability to fight under different circumstances, duress, etc. Yeah, we can head to a castle or something like that to augment our force, but I like 400. I feel like we can challenge most forces with 400, and we're almost healed. I've got a few good troops at Vlandian Castle, and we might need more for this. I think, let's see, we've got a couple armies just to the north of us here. Let's just call some armies here. We don't need to show off for the series any more than we're already doing, right? We want to demonstrate tactics, not impossible battles here. So we won't try 400 against 2,000, at least not yet in this series. Maybe towards the very end, we'll have like a final exam of beastly companion tactics. But I think this series benefits more from sort of realistic battles, right? So maybe we'll have 600-700 against 1,800. I think that is realistic for you fellas, right? You folks, you fine fellas, ladies, Rose, all of you folks. I appreciate continued support on the Patreon, right? And a lot of you guys I know by name. And we want to provide you guys with tactics that you can use, right? That sturgeon battle, obviously, with the overhead view, you guys should be able to easily emulate that. This is going to be a little bit more difficult, but we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But I think you guys and gals should all be able to handle 2-to-1, maybe even a 3-to-1 in the open field. If you have a good army composition, if you have good units like this, a good character. I mean, we don't even have the high medicine skill yet. Imagine when we get that 275 medicine skill, 250 Minister of Health. We're going to be wrecking shop. All right, let's see what this landscape looks like. Okay, I thought it might be this valley area here, and this is great for us, right? They have mostly infantry, right? So we're going to have another infantry on infantry battle. So let's enlarge this 3rd division, right? These are our murderers. These guys are going to do serious work in today's episode, and we want to basically have these guys in concentrated masses. All right, now we've got these lake rats. I guess they just joined us. They were some of the armies that we just added to us, which is nice because we're sort of artificially giving our army a handicap by putting all of our captains in 3rd division. We continue to do that to power level this army. I should have mentioned that after that sturgeon battle. We have all these captains in 1 division. What's happening here? I can't move. There's a guy in my way. You know, you have all these guys in 1 division. That way we can maximize how many levels, how much EXP, how many kills they get. But obviously, once they're sort of fleshed out, we'll put them back in their respective positions. We're leveling archers 2-handed skill in this episode. Guys and gals come to the channel sometimes and they're like, wait a minute. How do you got archers with 230 2-handed skill? Well, this is how, right? You take a day, you take an hour, whatever it is, right? And you take them to training school, right? You take them to the ITT, Institutional of Tech of Assassination, medieval style, right? And you have your companions take on a different role. It's good to have well-rounded characters because there's a good probability that your archers are going to use their weapons in big battles, right, over the course of your campaign. Do you have to do this stuff? Of course not. You don't have to play Bannerlord, right? You could go read a good book or learn something about history. So we're going to try to give you guys and gals as many tools as possible, basically to annihilate your enemy. Now, I keep saying guys and gals because I was told again by a gal, you keep saying guys, I'm a woman. I'd appreciate it, you know, if you mention basically the other sex. So we'll try to do that from time to time. Although according to my metrics on YouTube, it's 4% are women. So maybe we'll say guys and gals 4% of the time. Does that seem fair? We're all about you know, democracy here and logic. All right, I'm in a bad spot here, but we've got the enemy penned up pretty bad, and I like that they're sending mostly cavalry. I imagine the rest of their forces are moving up, but let's smash this cavalry while it's in front of us, and we'll keep an eye on that ridge. They're going to have, I mean, they have lots of cavalry too, so that might be part of the reason this first wave is so gnarly. But I'm sure they're going to have more troops coming over that ridge inevitably. Now, we want to defend that ridge, right? We want to basically hold a bit of reverse slope decline here. We're badly outnumbered. I've got 3 archer divisions, the 4th, 5th, and 7th. And then we have 2 frontline infantry divisions, excluding our shock troops, right? We have 2 defensive divisions, the 1st and the 6th. This is sort of my preference for an ideal army. 3 archer divisions, 3 infantry divisions, and 2 cav divisions. Tons of levers you can pull, tons of flexibility. Now, I don't know if you saw it. I kind of whizzed by there. They are right at the edge of the ridge. There's a large force. It looks like archers are pushing over first. They're probably trying to get a shot on us, right? They're probably trying to line us up. Let's make it hard for them here. We're going to take cover down at the bottom of this valley and force them to come over the ridge. Look at all these giant javelins laying on the ground. Those are the pylums, right? They're throwing these huge 12-foot-long sticks. All right, let's get a little scouting here. Yeah, it's a thick line, and it looks like a mix of archers and infantry. The way I can tell is they're throwing all kinds of axes all over the place. The sky, it looks like it's snowing, throwing axes, right? That's a telltale sign that it's not just archers. It is a mixed division there. So we hold the line here. We're going to charge with 3rd Division, with the 3rd, 1st, and 6th Division if they come into the valley here, right? We will buttress our attack with cavalry, although these guys... Let's attack these guys right here, right quickly, right before the enemy comes over the ridge. There's like 100 cavalry here bottled up against our troops, right? This is a slaughter. These guys have no business being here again. Enemies making mistakes, don't interrupt them. More accurately, thank them. Kill them and then thank them, right? The AI does this to you, charges in 100 cavalry next to your shock troops. Your guys should all salivate, and then you kill everything in sight. Maybe they got 3 kills there. Now, it looks like they killed an archer somehow. I forget, that guy had a polearm, right? So we are leveling weak archers in combat here. So we're going to suffer some losses today that are a little unexpected. Hopefully, they can get 3, 4, 5 kills before they get dropped, right? Get 10 points maybe towards their polearm or two-handed. Those guys, there's 2 of them. They're actually horse archers. We have 2 horse archers on foot, or hopefully on foot. I don't know if I'm dismounting them every battle, but they're horse archers that were leveling up their polearm by fighting on foot. That's definitely an option for you. And don't forget, it improves their athleticism, which we're always trying to push. All right, here they come. They're juking pretty well. That guy juked. That was like a nice little deke. He had me charge him, and then I got shot. But we hold the ridge here, right? This is a classic defense. You guys watch 10 episodes of our channel. You will all have this figured out, mastered probably. The old reverse slope decline. The enemy can't get that many troops to the edge of that ridge to shoot us. If they try, we will charge the shit out of them with their shock troops. Huge advantage here, either if you have lots of infantry or lots of archers. Now they're considering coming up, and you know what they're doing here. They're leaving this left flank completely open. I think it's time just to... Oh, they're trying to fucking flank us. Well, bad decision. We got cavalry and shock troops that move very quickly right there. Kill these boys. And we're going to use this to countercharge. Look at this open spot over here. We can get archers spread out right on the enemy's flank, push them up into a tight mass, and then charge with our murderers here. 80 shock troops following this cavalry. We're just going to take this left flank. This is a bit of an oblique order, right? Frederick the Great would be nodding. Yeah, I did that. I did that at Lutzen, or whatever battle it was. I can never remember the name of it. Push that cavalry right up in their archers so that their archers are all scrambling, trying to look for a spot where they're not getting run over by an armored horse. Meanwhile, we're setting up 2 archer divisions opposite of the hill here. It's going to be a little bloody for a second while our guys move into position, and it's still a huge amount of troops, right? I charged with our 2 infantry lines. There's a massive amount of troops up there, right? So it's going to fizz red for a while, but now we get our turn, right? The shock troops moving fast, set to battle. And I'm going to come in behind, of course, and blast people. And our units are going to move fast, right? I feel like I'm playing with the RTS mod on 1.5 speed. This 30% speed bonus is epic for a battle like this. Not only do you move and it's easy to juke, right? If a guy's swinging at you, you just move 10, 12, 15 feet away. But you do extra damage, right? There's a lot of momentum based in the system. If your character's running like this and he looks like he's all cracked out, you're doing higher damage. So are your units. And you can see their infantry is just in a bad way. They're surrounded. They're being shot from our archers. They're trying to regroup, and it's a ton of infantry, right? It's just shields as far as the eye can see. That's okay, right? We've got the flank here. We can start moving up our archers. Now, they're going to have reinforcements. So that's a bit troubling, right? We're going to have to basically put up some defensive lines, and in a hurry. One of the dangers of an aggressive move like this is that the enemy's going to have reinforcements before we do, right? In fact, here they come. There's a huge amount of cavalry that just poured in on us. Our forces are going to take maybe 30 more seconds to get here. But if we pound them bad enough, it won't matter, right? We might even be able to make them regroup again. Okay, that looks good. Here they come. Another bank. All right, let's get this archer division kited up onto the top of that hill. Let's get cavalry put towards the front of the enemy here. We've got to get these archers up here in a hurry because that's a lot of infantry coming. Get up on top of this hill. Go. All right, this looks good. I got this javelin sticking in my knee. I was once a battlefield commander, and then I got shot in the knee with the 12-foot javelin. It looks like it would get stuck on shit. I'm like running around, it's distracting my vision. All right, our shock troops are being kind of lit up here, but I had to wait a little bit for reinforcements. I got like 10 shock troops left. You will suffer massive casualties in shock troops when you send them in an attack like we just made. That's okay. They did more killing than they got killed, right? That's the name of the game. All right, we got an infantry division arriving. We should have crossbow too. It says 83 people in the 4th division, right? So let's make 2 infantry divisions here. That way we can pinch their flank. We've got a handful of archers to our left here, spraying down into the enemy. Now you just start moving aggressive here, right? These 2 infantry divisions are going to have to get bloody. There's not much more time for tactics, right, than what we've done here. Because the enemy's shooting us, they're boring in on us. We've got to fight. The good thing here, for sure, though, and this is, benefit of winning that first exchange, is that we have lots of high-level troops and the enemy doesn't. They're to their middle-tier units fighting our top-tier units, right? We're in good shape to push them out of here. And they're either routing or regrouping already, right? We're just clobbering this force. They're sort of swaying back and forth hesitatingly. Let's go for the jugular here, right? These fucking stubborn shields. I mentioned this before, right? In fact, during the Sturgeon battle, that shielded infantry is a pain in the ass for your shock troops. You want some help? In fact, thank you for this horse. I always take a horse nudge as like, hey, get on me. I'm like, all right, if you're going to knock me around, I'll get on. I can actually benefit our army more this way, right? Normally, I would want to be on foot, but here I can insta-flank and get behind the enemy, knocking them to the ground, killing a guy every other swing. And then, of course, we can quickly move up our units. All right, so they've got a whole nother wave coming in, right? We've got to present a good, strong shield line to this archer division. We've got to get archers up high, but we also have incredible momentum, right? Our forces are just roaring forward, and the enemy's backpedaling. I got almost no health. Fuck. I'm going to have to hide here, get behind a rock. Get in there, boys. Kill. Let's advance these archer divisions. We got one big crossbow division. Let's see what kind of a defense they present here. It looks like the best defense of all. They look like they're routing. I mean, they could turn and fight here, but it really does look like the enemy's like, I had enough of that, uncle. That was a fucking beating. And morale suffers from being flanked like that. I swear there's an internal part of the system where you start attacking the enemy units from behind and their morale craters. I see more whole army routings like this after they get flanked hard from behind. We'll try to get some rear flanks over the course of these next couple 3 episodes where you just completely come in behind the enemy, but this is going to have to suffice, right? This is a surround and drown with shock troops and highly effective, right? This is a kind of an amazing result considering we're outnumbered almost 3 to 1. 240 losses. 10 kills Frostbeard got, right? These guys did major wrecking ball stuff here and major skills upgraded as well. Now it's very, very bloody, right? Every single guy went down. But with vanilla death, like there's hardly any death, right? I'd almost say with vanilla no death. That's basically the easiest way to think it. Like regular Bannerlord, it's kind of amazing how little characters die. But then again, I guess we're used to our brutal Aserai and Vlandian campaign where companions die every other battle. And I'm sure the average player doesn't want their hard-earned, hard-built companions dying every other battle. I guess that makes sense. All right, let's pile all this loot up. There's so much we can't even fit it all into our Santa Claus bag here. And what's this shit? Man, it's more just almost insignificant events. Now, I want to say something here on events. I heard this from a subscriber, a guy I appreciate, comes by on a regular basis. He says that he had an event where he got 2.5 million dinars. It was like, he didn't describe it exactly. I was like, what are the conditions for that? And it sounded like he was in basically a heroic battle where he brought his team back, or just, it was a very difficult battle and they won. And there was some kind of event for millions of dinars. So that brings a lot of hope to me, that there's sort of like lottery ticket events that are out there. Maybe you get a unique sword or something like that, right? And if Tail Worlds is listening, that's the kind of thing I'm sure we would love. Put a unique event out there where you win a battle and King Dirt Dirt comes up to you and says, "This is my family's armor. Because of you saved our life in this battle, I am bequeathing you this set of armor," or this chest plate, and it's like off the charts good. I think that would be a really good addition to the events. All right, friends, we're going to wrap this episode up. We stitched together several different gnarly battles there. Hopefully that was beneficial for you, or at least entertaining. We're going to continue this companion series. We will start to cover more of the minutia for companions, as there's a lot of interest in this kind of thing. Please hit that like button on the way out. And with all that said, friends, I will see you next time.